Oh God, season two. Season two. What do we do different? How do we make it better? We got to make it like bigger.
I know, like everyone's expecting like some crazy, so we have to live up to that somehow.
Oh boy.
What if we have a little theme song?
A theme song.
Yeah, watch this. It's gonna go like, here's the thing. Birds are real, and it's mean to say that they're not.
You're right. That's a sick theme song.
And we're back with the season 2 premiere. My name's Keshav. I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Sam. Welcome back, everybody. It's been a long time, but also not that long.
Yeah, it really depends on your perspective. Like if we're talking geological time frames, very short. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, a month, 2 months?
2 months. I mean, yeah, if you're like a mayfly, that's like
it's your entire life.
Yeah, multiple times your entire life.
Yeah. That's something to think about. I think we just have to start with let's go birds.
Let's go birds.
Yeah, I mean, we just say that all the time in general, like 5 times a day minimum. Yeah. But it's good to see people are finally catching on. And yeah, with all this nationwide interest in birds, I think season 2 might just put us on the map.
I think so. If you're not sure what we're talking about, at the time of recording, the Philadelphia Eagles just won the Super Bowl. By the time this comes out, that might be old news. But go birds.
Go birds.
For those of you that are new to the podcast, we're a birding podcast here, and we have a kind of a specific flow to our episodes. Here's what normally happens. We'll kick it off with what we call the field notes section. It's where we go over all the birds that we've seen between the last episode and this episode.
Yeah, and then after that, we'll answer some check-in questions. Now we call them Hoot Topics. And those are listener-submitted questions. You can email us at birdsarereal.pod@gmail.com, and your question may be answered by us on a future episode.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be something for you? After that, we'll head into our main topic, which we're still looking for a name for that section. Mm-hmm. So if you have suggestions, let us know. But this will be what the episode is mostly about. One of us will lead, one of us will follow.
Yeah, and I think that's it. That's how we typically end the episode, right?
Well, we have one last section.
Do we?
We're famously both very good at, and that's the closing caw.
Closing caw. Is that something new we're doing this time? I don't really remember doing that last time at all.
Oh, I remember it.
No, I don't. I think new segment this season, yeah.
One of us is perhaps the defending champion of the closing caw section. A come from behind victory in what many are saying is one of the most epic comebacks of all time.
I really just don't remember that, but yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea. So we can continue/initiate it this season.
If you don't know what we're talking about, we end with a little bird call quiz. We'll each play a call for each other, and we'll try to guess what the bird is. We'll keep a running tally throughout the season, and you can all keep a running tally too. See if you're better than us. You probably are.
Yeah, you just might be. But yeah, definitely feel free to play at home. Probably a lot of fun. We wouldn't know.
Yeah.
We just do it here. So yeah, Sam, we have a lot to talk about in our field notes just because it's been quite a little bit since the finale of season 1. So do you want to get us started with the field notes?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a couple months. It's been a couple big months too.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to our finale, you'll know we had our guest Ryan on, and he talked about Statuist Point in Rhode Island.
I think it's pronounced Statuist.
Did I say it wrong?
I mean, just given that we've been there, I feel like we should, say it right.
Pay the respects. My bad. Anyway, we both went home over the winter, and we met up at, I'm afraid to say it now. Statuist Point. I mean, we saw a whole lot of stuff. I think I got 8 or 9 lifers that day.
Yeah, something like that.
Common eider,
harlequin duck, purple sandpiper, horned grebe.
I think I saw my first common merganser there. We also saw some red-breasted mergansers.
Mm-hmm. Saw Brant.
Brant was cool. I had not seen any Brants. That's kind of like a in between a duck and a goose.
Yeah, apparently they're pretty rare. Kind of hard to see, but they're kind of hard to find, I feel like.
Yeah, not a great bird and wingspan, but like a fine one.
Yeah, and with us was our producer Richelle and a couple of longtime listeners, Nick and Oscar. So yeah, if you listen to the pod, you may be able to come on a future trip.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
An official Birds Are Real trip, you know?
It would be cool in the future, maybe.
We were convinced that we saw a Merlin, but it was just like a red-tailed hawk.
Yeah, probably just a red-tailed hawk. Yeah. We were hoping to see a snowy owl. That was our like main thing. Not our main thing. We were excited to see everything else too, but there is like a resident snowy owl there that we were excited to see. But just from the weather, it sounds like they had a pretty big nor'easter there a few weeks before we got there, so it kind of just scared it away. So we didn't get to see it there.
We did not get to see it. And the other big thing we thought we might see, we kind of went in planning to see, was a red-throated loon.
Ryan got to see them.
Ryan did get to see both.
We unfortunately did not.
Yep. We didn't get to see them, but I did see a common loon when I was in Connecticut, just like
nice.
Out and about in the river. I had not seen one before, and apparently they're just there all the time, and I never noticed in Connecticut.
Yeah, us being in Philly most of the time, common loons here are like pretty rare, but you go up north a few hours and they're a lot more, I want to say even a lot more abundant though. They're still pretty sparse, but you can definitely see them if you look.
But yeah, wow, they're like, I didn't quite realize, I've seen pictures of them, but seeing them in person, it's like a duck, but it has a great blue heron bill. It's like,
it's pretty long, yeah.
It feels, it's kind of incredible.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to describe the feeling of seeing a common loon until you see one on like a quiet lake.
Yeah.
But yeah, get out there, especially if you live in the north.
Yeah. And well, then we both came back to Philly, and there was a celebrity sighting, a celebrity encounter we both had.
Big month and a half in Philly for like uncommon birds in the city.
Mm-hmm. But you may have heard us previously talk about the painted bunting, which is not a bird that you would expect to find in Philadelphia in the north at all. But there's this one that comes to Philly seemingly every winter for the past couple of years. And it came back, and we both went and saw it. Mm-hmm. I just barely caught a glimpse. I saw it, I got 4 pictures, and then it flew off, and I didn't see it again.
Yeah, I also barely saw it, got a few pics. It really like this meadow habitat, so it's just like this like beige brown meadow, and you just see a tuft of color of just like green, blue, dark red, orange in there. Yeah, really incredible to see. And like Sam said, it shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
People are hypothesizing that it got its like magnetic field switched or something, so it's going south instead of north instead of south. This time around though, people spotted 2.
Yeah.
And that was towards the tail end of when it was actually there, so we didn't get to see
neither of us saw it.
The pair of them, but there was 2 of them, so it's a good sign. It brought a little friend over.
I know.
The birding community was a little upset though that the meadow habitat that it came to for every year for the past like 3-4 years, they cut it down.
They did. They mowed it
down, yeah. And then people haven't seen the painted bunting since.
No.
A lot of back and forth because meadows are like a important habitat to maintain and not let overgrow for many ecological reasons that I'm not super into, or like that I don't have a deep understanding of. So it seems like they mowed it down to maintain that habitat, but people were upset at the timing of the mowing.
Yeah, the timing seemed weird because, the painted bunting is only here for so long. But yeah, it's tough to figure out kind of what's best. The same thing sort of happened earlier this year, or I guess it was last year, with John Hines, where they intentionally raised the water level, which made it easier for ducks to kind of make their home there, but it made it much harder for peeps and other like shorebirds to stick around during a big migration season. So there's a big debate happening.
Yeah, exactly. And if you remember from last season, peeps, sandpipers, those kinds of birds are pretty sensitive to changes in their migration patterns. So raising the water level a little earlier, people were worried it may have thrown them off, may have prevented them from coming to a stopover site like John Hines. But because they raised the water levels, it brought in more waterfowl.
Yeah, much waterfowl.
I feel like that's the theme of the winter here.
Oh yeah, big duck winter, big duck adjacent winter. I saw my favorite guys, the American coots. Mm-hmm. I just love those guys so much.
American coots are great. Some funky feet on those guys.
Yeah, huge feet.
Speaking of the snowy owl, we didn't get to see it in Statuist, but in Philly, there was a snowy owl. It's still around. It's moved location a little bit. It was more around Independence Hall, but there was a snowy owl just perched up on a skyscraper. It was just chilling, hunting the Philly rats on the ground. And I got to see it. Didn't get a great photo because it was nighttime on a skyscraper, but I'm glad I got to see a snowy owl.
Yeah, that's so cool. I did not get to see it, but the place it was, that's like, if you don't know Philly, that's like downtown Philly. That's like the tourist destination, and it was just hanging out there, which is pretty unexpected. It surfaced recently, actually, like a couple blocks from where I used to live, which is kind of a bummer because I don't live there anymore. But hopefully I'll be able to see it at some point.
Yeah, it was pretty cool because a lot of non-birders were into it just because it was like in the city. Like a lot of the security guards around there, you know, I just talked to some random security guards who are not necessarily into birding, but I was like, hey, what have you seen about this owl? They're like, yeah, you're like the fourth person who's asked us today. Yeah, this owl, it was just here. I'm sure it's gonna come back. I don't know. It's just cool to talk to non-birders about birding things and having them be excited about it.
It's always fun when just someone new is excited in birds that they haven't been before.
All right, so that's a doozy of a field notes, but a lot happened since we last recorded.
So much happened. We want to hear from our listeners too. What's been the most interesting birds you've seen this winter? There's probably been a lot.
Yeah, even if you don't have to send us questions during the Hoot Topics. You just let us know what birds you saw, what birds you were excited about.
Yeah,
that's cool too.
We want attention. We want to hear from you.
I love seeing that little notification that someone sent us an email. It's great.
Yeah, the serotonin boost is unmatched.
So speaking of which, let's get into our Hoot Topics.
Yeah, let's get into our Hoot Topics. So we kind of have a two-parter today. We'll start with the first part, as you normally do. What non-bird animal could you argue should be reclassified as a bird? This is asked to us by Dan.
Dan, longtime listener of the pod, has sent in a Hoot topic or two in the past.
Yeah, big supporter. We're grateful for it.
And yeah, good question. Which non-bird animal could you argue should be reclassified as a bird?
Yeah. So I'm going back to my incredibly well thought out theory that's been tested and proven from the season finale of season 1, which is that salamanders are basically lizards. Lizards are basically dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are basically birds. So everything really could kind of be classified as a bird.
If you really think about it.
But, we can definitely answer it a little more thoroughly than that. The first one I thought of is something that kind of looks like it's flying when you see it, but you don't see it in the air. You see it underwater. I'm thinking about like rays, like a manta ray.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because they, Mantine Pokemon is water flying type, but otherwise, they do kind of look like they're flying, and they do jump out of the water sometimes very gracefully. Just their movement patterns kind of remind me of the way a penguin moves.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. Manta rays always fascinated me as a kid because they're huge, they're massive, and rays and skates are most closely related to sharks. Interestingly enough,
I know, it's really if you look at an egg sac of like a ray and a shark, they're really
very similar. Yeah. No, yeah, manta rays. I forgot those, or just rays in general. Forgot those existed. That's a great answer. I was thinking butterflies.
Butterflies is good.
Butterflies because Cape May, big birding hotspot. It's also a big hotspot for monarch butterfly migration. I was just thinking birds migrate, butterflies migrate. I'm sure
coconuts
migrate. I haven't seen Monty Python, dude. I don't know. Other animals probably migrate too, but that's the first thing that came to mind.
That's a good one.
In terms of a large migration.
Yeah. I feel like on that note, dragonflies kind of I don't know, just another animal that seems almost beyond a bug. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. This is obviously a tough question to sincerely answer, but these are close.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to throw in dolphin there, and I'll explain why a little later in the episode.
Oh, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, don't get too excited.
Wow.
But okay.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm kind of excited for that.
All right, cool. I appreciate the appropriate amount of excitement there.
Yeah.
And then the reverse of that question: which bird should not be classified as a bird?
Yeah. So this is a tough one because birds they're all classified as birds.
They are all birds
right?
already. Yes.
So it's hard to think of a scientific reason why birds should not be classified as birds. And we're kind of going just based on vibes at this point, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So my first thought is the anhinga, which is the snake bird, some people call it. If you ever seen a video of an anhinga, it's basically like a cormorant, but more like a snake. And it slithers through the water. It goes underwater and it slithers, kind of like if you've ever seen a snake, like a water snake. Mm-hmm. The same motion, and like kind of stalks its prey.
Really? I didn't know that about Anhingas.
Its flying is somewhat unremarkable. It doesn't really even use its wings that much when it's swimming. Mm-hmm. It's mostly like feet and neck. So yeah, just vibe-wise, it's more of a reptile in my view.
I can see that. Have you seen an Anhinga before?
I have. I've seen one in Florida through like a thicket. I got not a good glimpse of it, but
nice. I haven't seen one. I saw some reports over the summer that people saw some in Pennsylvania, but sounds like south is more common.
Yeah, I think so.
My answer to this question is the king rail, because I just don't think that name sounds like a bird at all. If you just went to someone and you're like, hey, there's this animal, it's the king rail, they'd be like, what the heck's that?
Yeah, I feel like maybe I'd think that's like an antelope or something, you know?
Yeah, because like rail is a type of bird. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of birds within the rail family, but I just feel like doesn't sound like it, you know?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, just the name doesn't give me a birdie vibe from it, I'll be honest.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Sounds like a train, the king rail.
Oh, the king rail. I would ride the king rail.
Oh, wait, we could make a new train called the king rail. That'd be sick.
That's true. All right, investors, send us money. Send us the Kickstarter. We'll
the
get
birds
it going.
Are real train.
The birds are real train. The king rail. And then if I want to be petty and just like revoke a bird's bird status just because it's kind of mean, I'm taking the cowbird's bird status. And I know, like we've talked in the past, they're doing what they need to survive. It's all kind of this weird sort of, symbiosis. But boy, they're mean. Those are some mean birds.
Kind of just gives a bad rap to the other birds.
I know. So,
I'm sure the other birds wouldn't mind just kicking it out of the bird family.
I know. Yeah, make it learn a lesson. Come back a little nicer.
Yeah, maybe at the next redraft, it can join the birds again.
Yeah.
All right, thanks Dan for the hoot topics today. Those were fun.
Yeah, and if you have any hoot topics you'd like answer, once again, send us an email, birdsarereal.pod@gmail.com. When I say dot, I mean a period, not the word dot.
Also, feel free to send a DM to our Instagram account, birdsarerealpod.
Mm-hmm. Yep, our producer Richelle manages that account. She'll let us know if we get any especially good questions, so DM us there.
All right, so I think that nicely takes us into the main topic. And like we mentioned, it's been a big winter for waterfowl, as it typically is.
Yep.
In the northern hemisphere. And I want to talk about some wood ducks today.
Wood ducks. Those are some pretty ducks.
Those are some pretty ducks. I remember this past summer in 2024 when I started birding, I remember seeing some female wood ducks, but never saw the male because they weren't in their breeding plumage at the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to say I finally saw a male in its breeding plumage this winter.
Yeah, they almost don't look real. They kind of look like they're made out of wax.
Yeah, they kind of look dollish for sure. Do you want to describe the colors we're seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, wow. It's interesting because if you just say the colors, you might think it's a mallard, because there's green, there's brown, there's black, there's white, there's orange in the bill, but just the way it has it's iridescent, it's beautiful. It kind of has a nice little hood.
So crest.
Crest, thank you. It looks like it's got a nice hairstyle. Mm-hmm. I remember actually when the Mandarin duck was in New York. Mm-hmm. It was obviously all the rage. It has a similar shaped crest, and while we were there was also a wood duck off in the background. Yeah. That I was kind of hey, I know everyone's taking pictures of these Mandarin duck, but I'm still here, guys. And people have since kind of gravitated back towards the wood duck.
The wood duck, yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because they're pretty closely related. I have it in my notes here. I was going to ask you if the wood duck reminded you of any other duck looks-wise, and you just said it, the Mandarin duck. Uh-huh. It's the only other duck in the same genus as the wood duck.
Really?
The Mandarin duck.
Wow,
yeah.
That's kind of shocking.
It's the genus Ix. It's AIX, however you pronounce that. But they're the only two ducks, or only two species within that genus.
Wow, that's shocking because, I have to imagine that they're, located on opposite sides of the world, basically.
Yeah, I thought about that. It was, maybe there's just, I don't know exactly how taxonomy works. I assume it's just, actually, I should know this, but I thought it would be more genetics based. But yeah, like you said, maybe they just like converged at some point. But
Right.
yeah, the mandarin duck, native to Asia, wood duck, not native to Asia, or native to North America.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting that they're the only two species within that genus. But I think looks wise, it makes sense. They look very, like you said, the head shape is similar. They both have this crest. The coloring is not exactly the same, of course, but they have these like white highlight stripes in there.
Similar patterns, almost like the mandarin duck is like the shiny form.
Yeah, kind of. And the head is like the most like I don't want to call it attractive, but the head is the most like ornamental or like flashy part of it. I don't think we mentioned like it's just a red eye. Yeah, it's kind of scary. It's like kind of looks like it's like filled with blood or something, but it's really cool.
Yeah, red-eyed birds pop up every once in a while, like across the different species, and man, they're always really striking, especially if you have like the wood duck plumage around it.
So yeah, let's just talk about ducks in general for a little bit. Have you heard of the terms dabbling duck versus a diving duck?
I've heard a little bit about it, but if you asked me to tell you about it, I could not.
Okay, sounds good. So a dabbling duck, an example of a dabbling duck is a mallard. These ducks, they use their bill to dabble or like skim the surface of the water to eat vegetation or tip over and not necessarily dive, but just tip their heads over and keep their butts above ground, which we see a lot with mallards and some of these other dabbler ducks.
Yeah, the mallard butt is a classic. Anytime you're trying to get pictures, it's just all mallard butt.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, especially when they're in like a huge or like a whole line and it's just a bunch of duck butts in the air. So because they do this tipping motion and try to get plants from like the bottom of the water, they typically like shallow water. Conversely, diving ducks, they prefer deeper water. And so yeah, a slight anatomical difference between the dabbling ducks and the diving ducks are that dabbling ducks have their feet a little like more forward on their abdomen versus the diving ducks have them a little further back. So dabblers have an easier time walking like on land, and then they can take flight without a running start because they're able to like push off pretty well. In contrast, diving ducks, have you noticed a lot of ducks needing to take like a running start kind of to like take flight? Yeah, so the diving ducks, their feet are a little further back, so they kind of need to take a running start to be able to get enough force to achieve lift.
Common loons, I mean, that's the case with a common loon too. I think I read somewhere that they like basically can't even walk on land because their legs are so far back. They spend all their time in the water.
Exactly. Loons, not technically ducks, but the same thing applies here. Like the common loon dives, which I don't know if you tried if you had your camera with you when you saw the loon. It's sometimes so funny to track the diving ducks or the loons when you try to take a photo because they dive really fast.
Yeah.
So if you like blink, like you have it in your viewfinder, you blink and the bird's just gone. You're like, what the heck just happened? And then you have to like try to, and they dive for a really long time.
They stay under for a long time.
So you're wondering if they flew off and you missed it, or if they're just like underwater for like an obscenely long time. Because the diving ducks have their feet further back, that aids them in like diving for deeper. So yeah, like a lot of the birds or a lot of the ducks we saw at Sashuis, like those sea ducks, they're more diving ducks, like the common eider, the harlequin duck, buffleheads. They also do eat a lot of plant matter, but they also can eat like crustaceans and small fish. The wood duck doesn't neatly fit into either. It's definitely more of a dabbler than it is a diving duck, but the wood duck is in a group called the perching ducks, which might be a slightly outdated term, but taxonomists had a difficult time placing them between one and the other. So any duck that has the behavior of just like perching really high in trees, which is like unusual for most ducks,
right,
is just placed in the perching ducks. Which I don't think I've seen one in a tree before, but I think that'd be really cool to see.
No, I think that would be so cool. Yeah, because I mean, think like you don't think, oh, I'm gonna look up in this tree and there's gonna be a duck there. All right, what other ducks are in that category? What other perching ducks are there?
So like the mandarin duck, of course, because they're in the same genus. The Muscovy duck, pygmy ducks, the maned duck, which is a crazy good bird in wingspan.
Really good in wingspan.
Some teals. But yeah, not a lot of perching ducks other than, like the wood duck, the Muscovy duck around us.
Well, I know the wood duck is the only bird you can use in wingspan to get cards in the forest. So that makes sense.
Yeah, that's so true. And do you know what kind of egg nest the wood duck has?
Ooh, I'm trying to think.
On its wingspan card?
I want to say cavity nest.
Yes, cavity nest. Great. And very accurate of of wingspan to give it a cavity nest because that's what wood ducks nest in, tree cavities. So the wood ducks, of course, don't have like a woodpecker bill. They don't create their own cavities in the nests. So they most commonly find trees where like a branch has fallen off and rotted and it creates its own cavity there, or sometimes they take up the homes of pileated woodpecker cavities because woodpeckers, they make a cavity, they live in it or whatever, and then they leave. They make a new fresh one every time. And then so these wood ducks, they just take up or they nest in like empty cavities.
Nice, yeah. Going back to the symbiosis episode, I remember woodpeckers. You know, they do some good service for the other birds. Make a lot of homes.
Because of this, wood ducks typically are more commonly found in like mature forests, like old forests, comparatively to like newer forests where trees are younger, they haven't had cavities form yet, or like woodpeckers haven't like been to the area and formed cavities. So I don't think we've said this on the pod, but we've talked about it in the past. I feel like we should just learn more about trees in general, because or like forestry, or you know, different types of forests and stuff, because I feel like that really would elevate our knowledge into birding, you know?
I think so too. I mean, I know like some birds have trees in their name, right? Like the cedar waxwing, the one I was trying so hard to find, probably would have been a lot easier to find if I knew what a cedar tree looked like.
That's so true. Maybe something we can keep in the back of our minds as we learn more about birds.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, what kind of habitat have we seen these wood ducks in when we've seen them?
We see them normally in a very specific part of John Hines, which is the more creek riverish part off to the right side, less so the big lake, but kind of off, surrounded by trees and more of a river.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty typical on where to find wood ducks, because they do perch and they do nest in trees. So the impoundment, where there's just like a lot of open water, not much vegetation around it, we don't typically see the wood ducks there. But once you get to like that small creek, especially around the bend where there's a lot more like overhanging vegetation, that's typically where they like to hang out.
I'll have to look closer next time we go, see if there's any sitting in a cavity.
Yeah, I would love to see one in a tree. Yeah, getting a photo of one in a cavity would be elite.
Be amazing.
So yeah, going back to how wood ducks can't really make their own cavity nests, people have been putting up nest boxes, and wood ducks readily take them up. So a nest box, I'm sure you can Google how to create one specifically for a wood duck. But yeah, if you're near some water and you want to put a nest box up, and wood ducks are common in your area, there's a pretty high chance a wood duck is gonna take up its or put its nest in there. You do want to put it relatively close to the water, of course, but some wood ducks have been found nesting over a mile away from the nearest water source.
Wow.
Also, another thing is, like, since they do like nest in forests and stuff, I think I feel like I'd be going crazy if I like saw a duck like fly within the forest, because like, you know, we see ducks flying like over like open sky, but like through the vegetation, I feel like it'd be a little
right, especially if you're a mile away from the nearest water. Like, I don't think I'd believe my eyes.
Especially if you saw like a male wood duck in its full plumage.
Yeah.
It'd be a crazy sight. So have you ever thought about how ducks, or just waterfowl in general, are okay with swimming during like the colder months and keeping their feet in like ice cold water?
Yeah.
And how that really doesn't seem to affect them at all?
I know for the feathers, at least, they have those down feathers. They have those really tight, waterproof feathers, but the feet is shocking.
Yeah, because of course the feet don't have feathers, right? So you know how when you're cold, and your hands and feet tend to get cold faster than your core. Same thing with any warm-blooded animal, meaning any animal that has like the ability to generate its own heat and then distribute that via its circulatory system. And this includes birds. So, you know, it might be confusing to think that, you know, birds are just like okay with putting their feet in like ice cold water. So you may think this would be able to produce some issues, like when the blood comes back up through their venous system, it should be really, really cold, and that can cause some issues, right? So these waterfowl use this system of countercurrent exchange to circumvent that. So I'm gonna get a little sciencey here. All right, so basically the arterial blood coming from the heart to the feet is warm, and the blood leaving the feet and coming back to the heart is cold, right? So to minimize heat loss, to be more efficient, and just to prevent like ice cold blood going back into the bird's heart, they use this system of countercurrent exchange, which basically the arteries and veins are intertwined such that the heat from the outgoing arterial blood is transferred to the incoming venous blood basically they're just like right next to each other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so instead of losing the heat just to like the air or to the water, they kind of cleverly use that heat to warm up the blood, returning back to the heart. So I think that's pretty nifty. Humans also have this in their arms, but to a lesser extent.
Interesting. So when they're doing that, does that also make their feet feel warmer, like than it would if they weren't doing the exchange? Like it keeps the blood that's going to the heart warmer, but like the feet themselves, because I know if I put my feet in some cold water, like they're falling off. They're feeling really cold.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a little bit of that going on. There's also just like not much musculature in the feet. So, you know, if we put our feet or our extremities into the water, they're going to feel really cold and we're going to be unable to use them. But there's just really not much musculature within the foot of like a Canada goose or any like duck. So I don't think it affects their functionality too much, but warm-blooded animals basically power their bodies with food, and food creates that heat. So minimizing the loss of heat is very important. So and this is one way they do that. So going back to the hoot topic, I did say like another animal that is not a bird but can be classified as one. I think the dolphin.
Ooh.
Because the dolphin also uses countercurrent exchange to make sure like all the tissues in like its flippers and its tail are warm as well.
Right, they gotta, because they're in that cold water all day long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so maybe is that the case for like whales and manatees and all kind of aquatic mammals?
I imagine so. I imagine all like warm-blooded creatures, so like all the mammals in an aquatic environment. Yeah.
I'm jealous.
All right, so when we've seen wood ducks out and about, we've seen them like amongst other ducks pretty regularly, I feel like, because wood ducks are not territorial at all. They are not territorial at all in terms of other ducks. Males can get a little territorial with other males if they're getting too close with their female mate, but interspecies, they're just not really territorial at all. I think that may have something to do with the fact that they're perching ducks, but I'm not sure.
Oh, I wonder, yeah, because you do see them a lot around. I mean, mallards look huge compared to them.
Yeah, that's another thing. The wood ducks are smaller than you think. Yeah.
You see them around like the mallards and the even bigger Canada geese, and it's really not quite off-putting, but surprising, I guess.
Yeah, they do look like they should just be like 25% bigger, but they're just pretty like small. Yeah, and I know we mentioned the cowbird. We almost kicked it out of the club of being a bird because it was engaging in brood parasitism. But wood ducks kind of do that a little bit too, not to such a nefarious extent, but they just kind of engage in egg dumping. So they don't necessarily like kill the other eggs or like push them out. They just kind of lay their eggs in other birds' nests. In certain populations, it seems like over half the nests are egg dumped. So like the typical brood or clutch of eggs is like 10 to 15-ish from what I read, but some nests have been found to have like almost up to 30 eggs. So it's just like,
wow.
Yeah,
they got eggs to spare, so they're just kicking them here and there.
Yeah, and I think some of it may have to do with not being able to find as many nesting like opportunities. So they do what they can. They find a cavity, it has eggs in it, so be it. We'll just lay more eggs in there.
Right, it's got to be hard to find cavities that are big enough for a duck.
Yeah, albeit a small duck, but still, yeah. And then so that's why the nest boxes are also pretty crucial. Should have mentioned this at the top of the episode, but everything I'm about to say I learned from allaboutbirds.com and the Sibley field guides.
All About Birds and Sibley, the goats.
Yeah, can't go wrong with those guys. Yeah, and just to end it, wood ducks pretty common, pretty easy to spot where we are. But back in like 1800s, early 1900s, their populations were drastically declining for a variety of reasons. There was like due to industrialization, there was a lot of deforestation, there was a lot of draining of wetlands, so a lot of their habitat was being affected, and there was just a lot of hunting of the wood duck. So then in 1918, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act came into play, and then wood duck hunting was actually banned for 23 years.
Oh, great. I know the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. I'm pretty sure that stemmed from a group of women protesting the use of egret feathers in fancy hats. And so I'm glad that kind of scooped up wood ducks too.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool. But yeah, so their conservation status is like of low concern now. So hunting is now allowed again. They're only second to mallards and like the most hunted duck in the U.S., but at least they're not close to extinction anymore.
That's
so
good.
Another like positive, negative conservation story. At least we didn't hunt them to the extent of that there's no more wood ducks, because outside of them just being like super pretty and unique, being like a perching duck, just good that we're not eradicating species.
I know, definitely. I mean, yeah, I'm so glad that we have wood ducks around that we just can see pretty often. Like you said, we do see wood ducks year round at John Hines. Just we only see males with full plumage this time of year. But I really love when we go there in the summer and the morning birds are kind of dying down. You're not seeing as many. And then just like Mama Wood Duck with her 10 little wood duck ducklings goes swimming out in the impoundment in the water. It's really nice to see.
Yeah, I do have a photo somewhere of like of a mama wood duck and just those little ducklings behind it. Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks. I mean, it's duck winter, as we've said, and this is a great way to kick it off if you're just kicking off your bird journey right now, or to continue it if you're in the throes of it. Look out for a wood duck. Let us know if you see any. We'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll let you know. I'm hoping that we can. I can get. I think I got some good photos last time I went to John Hines, but like we said, in a tree would be great, or just like a closer one of one in his full plumage would be great. Yeah,
they're pretty wary at John Hines. You can't get too close.
Yeah, closer than I feel like sometimes we take John Hines for granted a little bit, because then we go to like a different place and we're like, damn, we really can't get close at all. Yeah. But yeah, they're a little skittish. Same with like the herded mergansers and everything that we see there, but. One day we really just need to get into those like ghillie suits and just like camp out and like, because that's how like the pros get their shots.
That is how they do it.
Dedication.
Yep. All right, well, that brings us to our closing caw, everyone's favorite segment, where we will play a bird sound, a bird call for one another. Try to guess what it is. As the winner of last season's closing caw competition,
I swear we're doing this for the first time for sure.
I will be very gracious and let you go first. So I'll play a call for you.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. To everyone who's listening for the first time, I do my best to make these calls at an appropriate audio level, but it's a little tricky. So just be ready to adjust your volume as needed.
Sounds very honky.
Pretty honky.
I don't know. As the supposed runner-up, maybe I should get a little bit of a hint. What do you think?
Okay. I think that's fair. I'll say this. You might notice that there were many of the same bird making this call in that clip.
Ah, so it's a bird.
It is a bird. Okay. I gave that away.
Play one more time?
Yep.
Okay, it still sounds kind of honky, but I don't think it's a duck. Knowing you is probably probably something we saw this winter. I'm gonna go with, since you mentioned it this episode, and I know you like this bird, I'm gonna go with the American coot.
It is the American coot.
Let's go.
Good job.
Let's go.
They do often. You find them in flocks. They're actually. I learned this recently. They're pretty closely related to the king rail and other rails, which are...
They do kind of look raily, yeah, that's fair.
They're pretty secretive birds, but coots, for whatever reason, they're just fine being out in the open with a bunch of other ones. So, good job.
Thanks. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we definitely... seeing them less now, but like late fall, early winter, we were seeing a lot of them.
Yeah. Maybe now that the ice has melted a little bit, there might be some more.
That's true. All right, you ready for mine?
I'm ready.
And play maybe a little different one if you want.
Okay. All right. Well, my initial thought when I heard this is, sounds just like the giant lizard that Obi-Wan Kenobi rides on in Star Wars Episode 2. If you know, you know.
Pretty close.
Well, as the champion of the closing caw segment, I feel like I deserve a hint too.
All right, that's fair. If you think this is not enough of a hint, I can give you another hint. But we did mention it today in today's episode.
We did. Okay. Because I was thinking whooping crane because it whoops like that so much, but we did not mention that today.
No, I've never seen one. Have you?
No, I haven't seen one. Yeah. All right. So it did sound like perhaps a sound that multiple ones were making at the same time. Maybe they birds of a feather flocking together.
Perhaps.
I'm gonna say not quite a duck, not quite a goose. I'm gonna say the brant.
Brant. Good guess. You're gonna be mad at me. It's the wood duck.
That's the wood duck.
We have seen it, and we have mentioned it. We just mentioned it on the pod today.
We did just mention it on the pod, yeah.
Yeah, it's the wood duck. I kind of forgot to talk about its call, so I thought this would have been a good way to.
That's perfect.
To do its call.
It's a very distinctive call.
It's very screechy, whistly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, it's like I always say, you can't make a comeback unless you're down.
No, yeah, this is not actually a really bad spot for me being ahead. I'm gonna get it wrong next time.
Yeah, you gotta blow it so then you can come back in the final episode this season.
Exactly.
All right. Well, how did you all do? Score right now is 1-0 Quiche. We'll see how the season progresses.
All right. Signing off. We'll catch you back in episode 2.
Yep. Thanks for listening. As always, like we've mentioned before, email us, birdsarereal.pod@gmail.com. Questions, comments, concerns. Don't email us concerns, actually. Follow us on social media. We have our Instagram @birdsarerealpod. We also have a YouTube channel if you prefer listening to podcasts on YouTube. Also, Birds Are Real. And tell your friends. Tell your mailman. Tell your coworkers.
Tell your coworkers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coworkers are big.
And, let us know what a banger this song is, huh?